All right, we'll call the meeting to order at 1:04. Roll call, please.
Town of Apple Valley,
Present.
City of Lancaster,
Present.
City of Palmdale,
Present.
City of San Jacinto,
Present.
City of Pico Rivera, City of Pomona, City of Rancho Mirage,
Present.
City of Santa Barbara.
Present.
We have a quorum.
All right.
Rivera present.
Did you get that, Steve, from Pico is present?
Yes, thank you.
Steve, can you please turn on your camera?
Yes, will do. It's pointing in a different direction. Let me get this worked out.
Okay.
Thank you.
In the meantime, we'll start the meeting with the flag salute. Janelle, would you mind leading us?
Right hand over your heart, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first item tonight is board comments. Are there any comments to be made by any of the board members at this time?
I was going to provide some board comments on the lobby days.
Great.
So the CalChoice staff, City of Santa Barbara and City of San Jacinto traveled to Sacramento last month and met with 15 different legislators, including a large amount of the Energy Committee members. Primarily, we were there just to educate on CalChoice and what CCA is in general, but we did a lot of speaking to energy affordability, explaining the two sides of the bill and which side CCA sits on, and requesting respectfully that they look at transmission costs when looking to tamp down energy costs. Generally very successful.
Thank you. All right, I do have one presentation I'd like to make, and if you would all, well, I'll make it from here. How about that? And then we'll take a picture after. But what I'd like to do is acknowledge Mr. Jason Cotto, who has served as our fearless leader for this organization for a number of years since its inception, and also for a number of years served as city manager and assistant city manager here for the city of Lancaster. Jason has decided to go on to greener pastures, and literally green because he's going chasing green energy with the initiatives in the hydrogen space on behalf of ourselves and other folks in that particular JPA. But I'd be remiss to not mention where this organization would be if Jason had not had the bravery in the beginning to set forth and get the first city established with the CCA in the state of California, and every other city came after that. And so he is a pioneer. He's been a champion for us all. And I think it's great that we take this opportunity, as he has filed for resignation of this role as of June 30. I haven't seen it yet. I don't think we've signed it yet. But he has let us know that he's going to be moving on doing hydrogen stuff here in the near future, and taking that challenge on behalf of us and a few other cities as well, very similarly as he did with the CCA space. And so I'd like to present this to Jason and get a picture, and if you wouldn't mind joining me to hand this off. I don't know who's got the camera. Oh. So Barbara has the iPhone. I can't keep a job. I keep losing my job. Thank you, Troy.
I will make a comment, though. You haven't seen the last of me. I'll be here asking you guys to join First Public Hydrogen Authority to talk about stationary power. So as much as we've accomplished here, we hope to accomplish the same at First Public. And we appreciate your guys' leadership too. I know George mentioned us, but it takes fortitude and leadership in all of your roles in your cities to do something new as well. Even though you have some support in our effort, it is still an effort that you guys deal with every day in your cities. So the bold action you guys are taking every day is meaningful to your cities, but also meaningful to this organization. So as much as I'll be leaving, I'll still be around. So I'll be likely talking to you guys about stationary power opportunities with hydrogen. And as you take the next step in your agency, whether it be with your next leadership structure or however it's going to happen, we will be supportive forever because this agency will last forever. So thank you guys.
All right, thank you, Jason. Next item is public comment announcement. Board Secretary, please.
Members of the public can address the board on items on the agenda at the time the item is being heard or during public comments for topics that are not listed on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. In conformance with the Brown Act, no board action can occur on items presented during public comment. If you desire to speak during public comment and are in person, please fill out a speaker card and submit it to a CalChoice staff. If you are participating in a remote location, please identify yourself with a CalChoice representative. When you're called to speak, please come forward to the podium and state your name. To address the board regarding an item on the agenda, please fill out a speaker card and submit it to the board secretary before the board chair announces the item. Thank you.
Are there any speaker cards?
We have no request to speak.
Next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. Are there any questions from the board on the consent calendar? Seeing none. Are there any questions from the public on the consent calendar?
We have no request to speak.
Okay. Are there any public comments from the remote locations regarding the consent calendar?
No comments.
All right, well, then I entertain a motion and a second for the approval of the consent calendar.
I move the consent calendar.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Second. Roll call vote, please, on the consent calendar.
Town of Apple Valley,
Yes.
City of Lancaster,
Yes.
City of Palmdale,
Yes.
City of San Jacinto,
Yes.
City of Pico Rivera,
Yes.
City of Rancho Mirage,
Yes.
City of Santa Barbara.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, takes us to new business. Item number 4, the CalChoice Legislative and Regulatory Policy Platform. I call up Kathy DeFalco, General Manager, to present this item.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Harris and board members. This afternoon for your consideration is an item to consider the adoption of a policy platform which will allow CalChoice staff and our lobbying team, represented by Andrea DeVoe on screen, to make real-time decisions related to policy, both in the regulatory and legislative arenas. And the purpose of this is basically to make sure that our voice is heard at the regulatory and legislative bodies that are issuing either proceedings or legislative actions. So the 6 principles and policies that we wanted to present to you today for consideration. The first is CCA governance autonomy, and that basically is to make sure that CCAs, governing bodies of the CCAs, can maintain the right to do their own rate setting as well as do their own procurement. The second is affordability. CalChoice is advocating for affordable, fair, and transparent rates that do not disproportionately disadvantage or harm disadvantaged customers or CCA customers. The third is PCIA reform, everybody's favorite subject. CalChoice supports transparent and equitable PCIA framework that does not penalize CCA customers. Additionally, we have energy resources. As many of you know, energy has been somewhat constricted by the lack of interconnection. So not only are we looking to promote renewable resources such as, battery energy storage, perhaps hydrogen, other new technologies that are out there that can assist the CCAs in the procurement world, but also to ensure that we have an efficient way to interconnect those projects to the grid. Regional grid governance, that is, I don't know if you are aware, but there's a lot of talk at the state level. It's SB 540, I think, is the most current legislation that's out there to regionalize the grid. This would benefit California in that it expands the territory with which things would be considered local. So we would be open to additional RA, things of that nature. Additionally, right now, from a solar perspective, we export quite a bit of solar to other states. That would, by broadening that region, the state is just a little bit more balanced in how that happens. And then lastly, sustainability. CalChoice would like to advocate for flexible incentive-based approaches to building electrification that allows for local adaptation and customer affordability. So we have Andrea DeVoe, as I mentioned, from DeVoe Berg Group, who will talk a little bit more about the platform and why it's a good idea for us to have a platform. Andrea.
Yeah, sure. Can you all hear me? Good. Okay.
Yes.
And I just for clarity, I'm not Kevin, which it says on the screen. I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. Kathy, thank you for the introduction. Hopefully this is obvious. And I think for any of you that have served on other boards or associations or stakeholder groups that engage at the legislative and regulatory level, it is pretty common for, and I'm really proud of the fact that I think we're at this point, for us to adopt policy principles. And really what this does is, as Kathy just, very briefly laid out, and the details are in your board packets, is it just establishes a clear framework so that from, for those of us on the ground and my team that's on the ground, it enables some nimbleness in terms of our ability to respond, support strategic alignment. It just helps us to, I think, maintain that level of flexibility for engagement, which we've really enhanced over the years. And, having to wait for board meetings every quarter to take positions on bills that are obvious in nature for us to either oppose or support can sort of hamstring us in terms of our level of engagement and effectiveness. So really, this is just, as I see it, the next evolution in CalChoice, and I think a mature next step. So happy to answer more questions. I don't want to belabor it. I know you guys have a full agenda, but that's really the premise.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the board? I just did have one comment, just want to, knowing that we contribute quite a bit to CalCCA, making sure that whatever their legislative agenda is, it's in line with ours, and we're meeting with them frequently to try to make sure that we have plenty of folks at the table being represented when we're going after certain legislative changes. And the other question was, I just want to make sure that the issues that we have talked about in previous meetings regarding delinquencies and making sure that we are afforded the appropriate tools to do that effectively is captured in what I believe the bullet point would be affordability in that arena. That anytime we have an opportunity to add a tool legislatively to help us with our delinquency collection rates, that it is still an objective of ours, since that is such a big deal for us financially, individually, as all of us as cities. So as long as that is clear, I think I want to see if there's any more questions from the public. I don't see any public still.
We have no
Chair,
requests.
can I, and I think I wanted to build on that, just making sure that we get updates on the CalCCA policy agenda to align this platform, I think would be really helpful as well.
absolutely, we will do that going forward. Thank you.
And then, I'm sorry, Kathy, can you please tell us how are we as CalChoice are represented on the CalCCA
Sure.
board in their efforts and the things that they do legislatively?
Sure. I am currently one of the board members. They also have quite a few committees pertaining to this particular topic. We have representation. Kevin Shnoyan is on both the Legislative Policy Committee as well as the Regulatory Committee. As a member of the board, we meet monthly and we have very comprehensive and extensive updates every single meeting on both regulatory and legislative issues. In addition, Andrea works with the CalCCA lobbyists to kind of make sure we're on the same page and that CalChoice is represented from the lobbyist point of view. So we are well represented. There's sometimes some issues that are IOU specific. However, most of the time they're very general across all three IOUs. But we will, as board member Parento requested, we will provide updates to the board on a regular basis on CalCCA activities.
Wonderful, thank you.
Mhm.
Excuse me.
Okay.
I had a couple comments just to add. We use a platform called Abstract here in the city of Pico Rivera to track our legislation. It's been very helpful and impactful for us. In fact, we've got recent legislation implemented on the Prop 4 bond at the state of California. So again, I would recommend looking into it as a possibility just to track some of the legislation you're looking for. We also have lobbyists, but we prefer to look at it our own self just to make sure we track legislation that's very specific to the city of Pico Rivera.
And we, I'll just add from the DeVoe group, we also have a tracking service. I've used Abstract. I think they're great as well. So concur with that. And we do have a tracking system for CalChoice at large.
Wonderful, thank you.
Great, thank you. We'll look into that.
Look into that for a second.
Any other questions? Thank you.
All right, at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion for approval of the report and the actions.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, roll call, please.
Town of Apple Valley,
Yes.
City of Lancaster.
Yes.
City of Palmdale,
Yes.
City of San Jacinto,
Yes.
City of Pico Rivera,
Yes.
City of Pomona,
Chris Diggs, yes.
City of Rancho Mirage,
Yes.
City of Santa Barbara.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you, Kathy. All right, next item, number 5, discuss options and provide direction regarding the Chief Executive Officer position. Jason Cottle? I'm just kidding. Barbara Boswell will be presenting this item.
Thank you, Chair Harris. At the last board meeting, it was announced that Jason Cottle would be moving on effective July 1st to be focused 100% on First Public Hydrogen Authority. And so that would create a vacancy for the Chief Executive Officer for CalChoice Energy Authority. The position had been filled by the City of Lancaster City Manager. The JPA agreement does allow for the position to be filled by the City Manager of the City of Lancaster, or the board may decide to fill the position in another way. And at the last meeting, it was requested that this item be placed on the agenda for discussion by the board.
All right, so at this time, we'll open this item up for discussion. I understand that let's be patient because we got to get through all of our different varieties of choices that we have, I believe. And I believe there were some suggestions on how we can handle this, a few different suggestions by staff. But starting with retaining that role at the City of Lancaster until we actually can decide if we want to actually recruit for it, or assigning that to any other leadership at any one of the agencies, for that matter, or we could choose to appoint somebody at this time if we actually have a name that we can all agree upon. And then I guess the final option is to discuss settling it with the city manager here, which would be in our case now, Trelise Niebla. He expressed he would do whatever is necessary to keep things moving. However, he is pretty busy. But I think in light of the fact that we've diversified the board with with leadership from each agency, that would be wise for us to give somebody else, another city manager or another appointee at another agency, a chance to serve in this capacity. So open it up for discussion. Lelia, you have your microphone on?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I have a couple of thoughts on this. One, I think that CalChoice is at a crossroads, right? All of the CCAs have reached a level of maturity with staff and representation. And I think it would be a really interesting time to actually gather potentially in a working session and just discuss what we would like out of a CEO position. Like, we could continue status quo, or we could really go in a different direction. So I think my recommendation would be the third choice on the staff report, which is appointing an interim CEO, and then discuss with the board how we want to move forward, whether it's creating a whole new position or moving forward in a more status quo role. Additionally, I think I just wanted to clarify too, it cannot be a board member, right? The interim CEO, it can be a member city, but not a board member. So just in case someone was going to start throwing out names. That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. Which is good to know. And then, and I would just challenge all of the member cities to really think about, what's working really well for them at CalChoice, which is a lot of it. And then what would they like to see? Is there a growth with all this lobbying, with programs really coming into maturity? Like, is there a bigger role for the CEO to play?
And I think, bear with me in a second here, I think we should actually take our time to develop what the future is and come up with what do we see the CEO's objectives being? And quite frankly, that becomes the objectives of the organization. And so I know we discussed having a workshop at our next team group session or conference that's going to be taking place later this year or later this fall in San Diego. And that gives us an opportunity as a noticed meeting for us all to really discuss where we're headed with the organization. I think it'd be wise that we establish and work on that before we identify who the CEO is going to be identified to drive us in that direction. So if that's what you're saying, okay, then I agree with that. We've kind of advanced the discussion ultimately on the role of the CEO, the objectives of the organization, and how that person fits in there to our October meeting.
I believe it's October, the annual meeting.
Our annual October meeting. But in the meantime, we do need to have somebody appointed as soon as July 1st, as Jason is moving on. And so in an interim role with the objective of keeping things going from a signature authority standpoint, as well as having an intermediate person between the board and the consultant Bayshore to make sure that there's some independence there. And so I'm open to ideas as to who we shall appoint for that role.
City Rancher Mirage, question on potential interim role fulfillment. Does it have to be one of the cities, or are we able to potentially have staff, for example, our current general manager in a potential interim role?
So what do you mean by staff? So staff not at the cities or somebody, a representative of Bayshore?
I was thinking Kathy, potentially, maybe. Are we allowed to do that, or does it have to be one of our member agency city managers?
It can be either. That's a decision for the board.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, in that case, then I am in agreement with Santa Barbara that I prefer, I think, option 3, which is to appoint an interim and then discuss it together later and decide where to go from there.
Okay.
Steve,
And well, go ahead.
From the city of Pico Rivera, I concur with the 2 board members' comments, and also agree with an interim. The name Kathy was mentioned, and I wouldn't have an issue with that as well.
Okay. For the attorney, for Allison, is there, I think part of the things I just want to be careful of is the independence of that role in between us as the board and the consultant being Bayshore, and we love them all. But in the event, does it put them in any conflict situation where they have to present items that would benefit Bayshore one way or another? I want to make sure that we're
It could get
clear.
dicey for a staff member of Bayshore to present Bayshore's contract to this board for consideration if there's a change in compensation and, an increase, a decrease. That could prove very sticky from a 1090 or an FPPC perspective. I would want us to think carefully about how that is handled if someone who is currently affiliated with Bayshore were to become interim or permanent general manager, CEO of CalChoice.
And so if it were the case, then it would be the board that would be requesting items that would benefit Bayshore, not necessarily the CEO.
It would
the-
put that
yeah.
person in a conflict situation to participate.
Yeah, and that's what
on
I'm
those
concerned.
items.
Yeah.
And that makes functioning pretty hard. So while there's probably a way it could be done, it would be cumbersome.
The only way I could see it, and this is just me, I've been thinking about it for the last couple of weeks, is if Kathy is being nominated, then Kathy would need an independent contract separate and apart from Bayshore. And so that becomes another,
Then CalChoice becomes a direct employer.
contract wise.
Contract.
Yeah.
Or yeah. so-
It should be a
yeah.
contract employee.
Mhm. Yeah, there's probably a way to do it. It's just we would have to be very thoughtful about having someone who is an employee of Bayshore advocating with regard to Bayshore's contract. That would be a problem.
Chair, can I ask, are we allowed to ask the board members in attendance if they have a staff member that could fill?
No reason you can't ask that.
So I guess
question.
I would ask that at this point. Does any of the board members have someone that would want to fill this role in the interim?
To avoid the conflict issues. Yes. Not that I think Kathy would fit the role great. It's just, I want to make sure we are all staying out of FPPC and yes. I don't know. From what I understand, some of us are more active than others. And I know Jason has been historically active, and I believe another person that has been extremely active and loves the CCA world and quite frankly was our first agency that joined after Lancaster, and that was San Jacinto. And with Bob serving currently as an alternate to the board, and also being in a similar capacity as Jason was as the city manager of San Jacinto, would he be interested in serving in that capacity in the interim until we decide which direction we'd like to go? And he's on the call. I was wondering, I don't want to put it out there and make a nomination unless he'll hear whether or not he's interested.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I think San Jacinto would be able to do that on an interim basis. Obviously, I would lean heavily on the board itself to help in that process. I really like the idea of what Alayla put out there that, CalChoice is we are at a crossroads, right? We're kind of, we have got that foundational step. We're all kind of growing up in this, whatever we're calling it, this space, right? And I think that there are opportunities for each CCA to provide information to the board that would be appropriate for how the next CEO would respond in those ways. And then, go out and seek that type of individual after really putting together, and it's going to be it's going to be a lot of variety. The CEO is going to have to juggle a lot of things with different cities because we're all focused on different things. But I think that somebody who has some relational ties to different areas, it's a little bit of a deep water to swim in for me personally. I'm willing to do that if there aren't any other options. But of course, that's going to be a conversation with my council as well.
Well, hearing that, and I guess pending the conversation with his counsel and an understanding of how that would work, contractually, I believe there was some cost recovery from CalChoice for a portion of Jason's salary that went back to the city of Lancaster to help fund him. And so I would imagine that would still be available, that amount would be available as a credit back to San Jacinto if he was selected. And so I guess I'd like to make that nomination pending his discussion with his counsel.
Well, I would just say now that you've said that, and there's a little bit of money coming back, San Jacinto would probably enjoy that piece of the puzzle for San Jacinto Power.
And we would want him to resign as an alternate.
And he would have to
that's
resign
fine.
an alternate, yes.
Understood.
I'll second that motion. City of
It was-
Pico Rivera.
Pico Rivera second. Okay, so with that, we have a first and a second with the nomination of Bob Johnson from San Jacinto to serve as Rob Johnson, sorry. Well, Bob is also short for Robert. For Rob Johnson to serve as interim CEO pending the development of the role by the entire board at its October annual meeting, and then thus recruitment thereafter for the permanent role. That is the motion on the floor, and please take a roll call vote.
We need a second.
I believe Pico Rivera.
Pico Rivera second.
So before we do that, can I just double check just to make sure that my own city manager realizes what is being asked of him regarding work-wise regarding this? I just want to make sure.
Understood that I would be leaning heavily on Bayshore.
So
I guess there additional conversations could be had with the former CEO as to the workload and the responsibility of.
okay.
All right, so with that, we have a first from Lancaster, a second from Pico Rivera. A roll call, please.
Town of Apple Valley,
Yes.
City of Lancaster,
Yes.
City of Palmdale,
Yes.
City of San Jacinto,
Yes.
City of Pico Rivera,
Yes.
City of Pomona,
Yes.
City of Rancho Mirage,
Yes.
City of Santa Barbara.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Takes us on to new business item number 6. Consider adoption of a resolution approving the California Choice Energy Authority fiscal year 25-26 budget. And as the treasurer, Barbara Boswell, will be presenting the item.
Thank you, Chair Harris and members of the board. What's being presented to you is a proposed fiscal year 25-26 budget for your consideration for adoption. The budget was prepared using the prior fiscal year as a base and made appropriate adjustments related to increase in costs or decrease in costs, as may have been the case. And an adjustment to how the CalCCA fees have been handled. And that's probably the most significant change to the budget. And so I'm going to start there with the presentation. So in prior years, the way that CalCCA has determined fees for the CalChoice members was it was based on each individual CCA's revenues. And then we were billed individually for each CCA. And that charge appeared on your quarterly on an invoice. When we, and it for fiscal year 24-25, that amounted to $585,000. When we received the initial dues from CalCCA for the coming year, they were proposing an increase that would have increased the total aggregated dues by $52,000. And so that resulted in Kathy and I taking a closer look at all of our fees as compared to the other CCAs. And when we aggregated the fees that our CCAs paid, the total dues exceeded that of the largest CCA in the state. And so we went to CalCCA, and we have just one board vote, just like the largest CCA in the state. So we went back to CalCCA and asked them if they would consider CalChoice as a single CCA for purposes of determining dues. And that then internally, we would include it in the other shared costs, which is allocated then by load amongst our members. CalCCA said that they would consider it and would take it to their committee that looks at dues. And so they did bring it before the committee, and it was agreed that yes, actually, we should be considered as a single CCA for purposes of dues because we are a single CCA for all other matters that CalCCA handles. So that resulted in our aggregated dues for fiscal year 25-26, that's a typo, of being $520,000 as opposed to what would have been an aggregated $638,000. So it is a savings. It's a $65,000 savings compared to 24-25 and over $100,000 compared to what would have been paid in 25-26. What that does is that then that $520,000 is added to the CalChoice operational budget, and that's the majority of the increase that you'll see in the budget. We also included the full year expense for the board secretary position in professional services. So our revenues, the majority comes through the fees that are assessed to the member agencies. It's projected to go up by $724,000. Again, the majority of that is related to the CalCCA dues, $520,000. We're proposing a budget of $2,715,000 for operational expenses, and that's the basis for the fees that will be assessed to the member agencies. And that's on an expense side is an increase of $689,355. We are projecting, we've included non-operating revenues. Those include sponsorships from our partners who will sponsor our all-member summit, or we will be asking for seeking sponsorships, as well as interest income. Our net results of operations as proposed would net a positive $135,000. Again, that's related to interest income and any sponsorships that we're projecting to receive. We also looked at what the 2024 electric load was for each of our member agencies. In the past, we had been using the load that was included in the implementation plans, and we realized that was outdated. So we asked Pacific Energy Advisors for each of our members' 2024 load usage, which is represented there. And then for purposes of allocating the shared operational costs, that's based on the percentage of load against the total. So you can see how those percentages broke out. And then on the right, you can see how much of a change it was from the way the 2024 was allocated. So based on the change in the budget, as well as the update of the load, you can see how the administrative services revenue is proposed to be changed for the coming year, and how the $2,715,000 breaks out among the member agencies. Again, keeping in mind that now includes the CalCCA dues that were listed separately previously on the invoices. With regards to the operating expenses, you can see the largest line item in our operating expenses is professional services. And that is proposed to go up 137,000, and we'll go into a little more detail about that. And then publications and dues, the 520,000 is being offset by a small reduction in that line item as well. So as far as the changes in the budget, we're proposing an increase to the all-member meeting, which we are considering rebranding to the All-Member Summit. Had previously in budget 25,000, we actually spent 59,000, so we're proposing to budget 60,000 for that. And then we are eliminating other sponsorships. In the past, we have had sponsored, I believe, CalCCA, and we've removed that from our budget. And then under publications and dues is the increase for the CalCCA dues from $1,000 to $520,000. And then professional services, the CalChoice admin is the Bayshore contract. And then our audit services is going up by $5,000 for the coming year. We also have a program section of our budget. This is for our disadvantaged communities green tariffs. The cities of Lancaster, Pico Rivera, and San Jacinto were eligible for that program. It is funded through California Public Utilities Commission public purpose funds. And so for the coming year, that those costs are $517,000, which are fully offset by the revenue that comes in. So the statement of net position as proposed, we would be beginning the year with $1,824,000, assuming our estimates for the current year are accurate. Adding in the $135,000 from the current year, we would be looking at a total net position of $1,009,000. $1,006,000 of that is considered our operational reserve, and just under $360,000 is undesignated reserve. So the recommendation before you is to adopt a resolution approving the California Choice Energy Authority budget for fiscal year 25-26. And I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have. Thank you.
I do have one question. Did we ever establish, and I think I asked you before, and it's appropriate for me to ask you publicly now. Did we ever establish a reserve policy to set the reserves at a specific amount or percentage or?
Yeah, so CalChoice has historically defaulted to the city of Lancaster reserve policies, which off the top of my head, I can't remember what that reserve policy, I want to say for enterprises, it was 20%.
Correct. And I believe for our own Lancaster Energy program, we set our policy at 25% of
You increased
revenue.
it to 25.
And I think we did that, but we don't have a CalChoice policy for reserves independent of the cities. And
Correct.
so I guess one of my recommendations would be we can either direct staff to come up with one and present one at the next meeting. Or if there's different structures that other board members want to consider, maybe we can either discuss it as a topic on our next item or our next agenda. Or I'm actually even open to, because some of us on this board are actual finance directors. We carry that role as well, roles very proudly, and we're just reserve nerds. And so in setting policy, even Jason gives me side eye because of the time we spent drafting the reserve policy for the city of Lancaster. Maybe introduce the idea of establishing an ad hoc committee just to reserve, so that way we can discuss what elements may cause risk to the revenues of CalChoice, independent of our individual energy operations, but specifically to CalChoice, what are the risks that we are actually reserving for? And so may be thoughtful to just have an ad hoc committee that we can establish for that. Maybe we bring that back at the next meeting. In the meantime, I think the 1.6 that's established in the projected 359,000 is adequate. But maybe developing the reserve is something we can do, put forth a policy and actually have it adopted by the board.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Harris. I think that is a great suggestion. CalChoice does enter into energy procurement contracts as the counterparty and then pays for those energy contracts and then gets reimbursed from the cities. Sometimes the timing isn't perfectly aligned. So we do need some level of reserves and cash in order to be able to perform that function on behalf of our member agencies. So I think a ad hoc committee to look at that and, taking into account what we view as the future of CalCCA and, where we're going to go. I think all of that is, I think perfect timing.
Okay, perfect. And then the other elements that provide a threat to us that we would want to reserve and protect against, we can discuss through that ad hoc as well. And if you wouldn't mind leading that ad hoc discussion as the treasurer, we'd appreciate it.
I'd be happy to.
Okay. And then I don't know, did we ever amend the Bayshore contract to include the secretary?
No, Chair, we have not
Oh, okay.
at this time.
Oh, it is being. Oh, it's a separate item. You're right. You're right. Okay. But yeah, so we are approving this budget, assuming that cost is in there, correct? Yes.
Yes, it has been budgeted for.
Perfect. Okay. I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of that. And so with that, I'll entertain any
I
questions.
have a few questions.
Sure. Yeah, some other questions.
Yeah, some other questions too.
Do you want to go first?
Go ahead.
Okay. One question I have is how are the CalCCA dues assigned? Because now we still pay pretty close to what Clean Power Alliance pays and we're much, much smaller. So I'm just curious how that is assigned and is that still inequitable?
Yeah, the way that CalCCA approaches dues is they have what they call tiers, and they bucket tiers up to a certain value of revenue is all of the CCAs within that value pay the same dues. And then there's a second tier and a third tier and a fourth tier. We're currently in the third tier, so we're not in the highest bucket, but we're in that third tier.
Thank you. And one thing that I would really appreciate in the future, as a new board structure, this is probably just a new item that we should have, is I don't feel represented by CalCCA. So I would love to learn more about how CalCCA is working for us. I do understand Ms. DeFalco is working with them frequently. And so maybe it's just a better understanding of what they do provide. $500,000 on behalf of CalChoice is a tremendous amount of money. And what are we getting for that money? I'm not proposing that we pull out of CalCCA, but I would just like to know that there's value there.
Yeah, and we can ask the executive director, Beth Vaughn, to come and speak to you. And Kathy and I actually have recently talked that she will begin providing reports to the board on items that are coming through CalCCA so that you do feel more informed about.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then one suggestion I would like to make to the board, there's currently a budget line item for about $30,000 for travel, CPUC, and seminars. I do think it is fair that when a board member does something to represent the entire JPA, such as lobby days, not to be self-serving here, but there's probably other examples too, that should be covered by this budget. I do understand that there are ethics training requirements related to that. I think most of us have to take that anyway. I sure do every year.
Yeah, so if the board members receive compensation or reimbursement in any manner, then we would have to require the board members to take AB 1234 training, which is available for free on the Secretary of State's website. It's not a big deal, but it's
2 hours. 2 hours of your life.
2 hours of your life. That's really it.
And so it could be an option perhaps. And I think it might increase access to other members who might not have travel budget or enough travel budget to also join on some of these expeditions. So I would like to propose that. And lastly, I just wanted to echo the chair's reserve policy request. I think that would be really interesting also for us to know those pass-through costs. I mean, I was looking here, it's almost $100 million. It's quite substantial, right? The $96 million of pass-through energy procurement that you guys are doing for us.
Yes.
So I could imagine that you would want some buffer there. And then just included in that, how at what point, what threshold excess revenues are being returned to the members or what that looks like.
Yep.
That's it. Thank you, Mr.
All right. Are there any questions Tom, I believe you had a question.
Thank you, George. one thing that I did want to talk about, Eulalia's, comments regarding Cal CCA. Yeah, I think that would have been a perfect hour-long session for Cal CCA to do. You know, what are we doing for you? But anyway, just really quick, I just had a couple questions. Some of them were answered already. I was going to request maybe a breakout of the CalChoice admin and management, but I guess that would technically be approving the contract with Bayshore, and so we would be able to see what that detail was, rather than just a lump sum of almost half of our total expenditures. But the next thing the next question I have is, what exactly is the CalChoice board admin? If the secretary is covered under admin and management professional services?
Yeah, that amount was added to the board when the board makeup changed to provide funding in the budget should the board request anything special that the board may want us to pursue, that there'd be money in there, whether, you might want, if you wanted to hire someone, other than the lobbyist, or, an attorney to look at something or anything special, that there'd be funding in there for the board
Okay.
to be able to have discretion.
Okay, and then my last item is regarding the administrative overhead of about 144,000. What exactly is being covered there? I mean, I'm used to our budgets where we've got, certain departments that are being allocated to other departments, but obviously we don't have that situation here. So what exactly is the covered under admin overhead?
That was the reimbursement for the CEO position to City of Lancaster.
You're referring to the $144,000 listed?
Correct.
Yes, that was for the CEO overhead.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
Right. If there are there any? Ranch Mirage, go ahead.
Yes. I just wanted to say I too, the Cal CCA, the fees, I am definitely really interested in the benefits that the CCAs are collectively getting for being a part of that as well, because, we do have our own lobbyists now, and we're definitely seeing more active, especially from Santa Barbara lately in the lobbying effort. So I guess, I would definitely want to hear what are the benefits for that to all of us, and then definitely having staff bring forth a reserve policy of some sort. Thank you.
Either Pomona or Pico Rivera have any comments?
No comments.
No comment.
Are there any more comments for those that are here? All right, thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
Entertain a motion for approval of the budget.
I'll move it. Sandy Seno.
I'll second.
So a motion from San Jacinto and a second from Apple Valley. Can we please take a roll call vote, please?
Town of Apple Valley,
Yes.
City of Lancaster,
Yes.
City of Palmdale,
Yes.
City of San Jacinto,
Yes.
City of Pico Rivera,
Yes.
City of Pomona,
Yes.
City of Rancho Mirage,
Yes.
City of Santa Barbara.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, that leads us to new business item number 7, the Chief Executive, General Manager, General Counsel updates.
The executive director ran away.
I guess.
Yeah.
So I
was gonna turn the floor over to the general CEO. And,
Good afternoon. Good afternoon again. I hear I heard you all on Cal CCA, and we will do a better job of making sure you get all the information. In addition, I'm gonna kind of echo what Barbara said. We will talk to Beth Vaughn and see if she's available to come to the next meeting to answer any questions and give you a presentation or something that lets you know the value that they bring to your CCA. Second, I wanted to just do a general update on the financial security requirement. As some of you know, they recently came out, they being the IOUs, came out with a new advice letter regarding the financial security requirement for this next period of time. And just very quickly, the financial the FSR is a mandatory requirement that CCAs have to have in place. And the intent of the FSR is to offset costs to the IOU should a CCA basically cease to function and there is a mass return of customers to the incumbent utility. So it is a requirement. It has been the same amount for as long as all 8 of the members have been CCAs. However, there's been some new methodology introduced as part of the provider of last resort proceeding that came out of the CPUC. So we got our first advice letter, I guess about a week and a half ago, and the numbers were much higher than expected. We had gone through an exercise with Edison, with Scott Blazing a few months back. Looked like everything was going to be the same, and it was not. So Kevin and I have been working with Scott Blazing, and he immediately found some issues. In parallel to that, CalCCA had their data experts running through all of the material, also found some additional very significant issues. So and where it stands right now is we'll be getting an updated advice letter or advice letter that's supposed to be out before June 2nd. Also, you may recall that about 18 months ago, we had another little blip that it looked like the financial security requirement might be increased. So at that time, CalChoice, Barbara primarily worked on getting bonds in place, which is allowable under the statute. And so currently there are bonds in place. So even if there is increases, there'll be very little impact. The bond payment is 1% of the total amount. So prior, it was a cash collateral situation for the letter of credit. Now it's being handled via a bond. So I just wanted to give you an update on that in case you hear about it. It's kind of a big deal in the CCA world right now. All IOUs have been, 2 of the 3 IOUs have been impacted. San Diego Gas and Electric has not, but PG&E also has significant errors in there. So that's it. Question?
Yes, thank you. Can you help me understand why the IOUs are allowed to use different data sets and methodologies when calculating this?
They are not. And that is, so the issue that we had a year and a half ago, which prompted the bond, us getting those bonds, was that SCE was using a different time period when they're looking at the average of their energy costs than the other IOUs. And so we protested, the CPUC came back and said, we're going to put this in a proceeding, so just hold off, SCE. So here we are again, and the provider of last resort included this in one of their tracks as something that they were reviewing, and they were supposed to be eking out all of the inconsistencies in the original proceeding and the language to make sure that everybody was consistent in how they interpreted the methodology. So again, that will be looked at. CalCCA is really putting a lot of focus and effort internally on this, and they're meeting with the IOUs, they're meeting with the Energy Division next week, I believe, to make sure that this goes the way that the CPUC intended, which is that all IOUs do it consistently using the same inputs. So more to follow on that, but there, from a financial perspective, the impact will be very, very insignificant, if at all. So, but just an update, because I know some of you are copied on the emails that come out from SCE, and we don't want you to panic. So, and that was it.
All right, thank you. Ms. Allison Burns, are there any updates?
Nothing for open session. Thank you.
All right. So with that, we do have an item on closed session. We'll be adjourning. Well, not adjourning to closed session. We will be entering into closed session. I believe for those online, you will be moved into a separate room.
So we had a little bit of trouble with the breakout rooms. So those of you who are online should have received a Zoom invitation from me inviting you to a closed session Zoom. If you have not received that, please raise your hand now so we can make sure we get it to you, because if I did a typo, I need to make sure I get it to you. And I'm sorry, we got one.
Jessica, Tom. So Chris, you received the invitation? Chris Tiggs, did you receive it?
I'm looking to see now.
And Steve Carmona, it should have gone to you as well.
Yeah, do you know when that was sent out?
During this meeting.
I have not received it.
So I sent it to chris.diggs@pomonaca.gov, Jessica P@ranchomirage-ca.gov, Megan that's separate, S. Carmona @pico-rivera.org, T. Prill@sanjacintoca.gov.
Jessica with Rancho Mirage. I have no dash. There's no dash in my email.
Oh, the Rancho Mirage is one word?
Yes. ranchomirage.ca.gov.
San Jacinto sounded right, but I still don't have it.
Likewise, Pico Rivera, you have the right email, but I do not have it. It's not in my.
Same here with Pomona.
And I just
Okay.
have a point of clarification. As interim CEO, obviously publicly resigning from the board, but should I be
Yes.
included in that closed session as well?
No, thank you for asking.
Maybe it would be easier just to say, is there anybody on the call that just needs to drop off and we all stay here? Rather than circulate.
We can actually we can stay here, vacate the folks that are here, have folks vacate from there. The only thing we need to do is watch for people entering the Zoom.
So we have to ask the attendees.
Yes, so each remote attendee, if you have anyone else in the room with you besides the board member, the seated board member, please go ahead and ask them to enjoy departing the room. And then for here, we'll need everyone to clear the room and we'll reopen when we are finished.
So I'll ask Kevin if you'll leave. We have S. Carmona signed in as a guest and Julie Carver.
And if you want to text me, I'll send one.
Hey, Rob,
Yes, sir.
that means you.
I'm going to shut down my other computer in my office. I'll be
Have
right
fun.
back in 2 seconds.
I can remove it. Steve, I can remove it.
Okay, perfect.
So you
Thank
don't have to.
I need the steps, but thank you.
Wait. I don't think they need to wait.
And is there live, are we broadcasting live? I know we're not broadcasting live on L28, but are we recording?
So turn off the recording.
Please stop the recording.
Yeah. And we're not broadcasting, correct? Okay. Yes. When he's leaving, yes. You need to be.
Yeah. Thank you, Eli.
Oh, I can.
Mr. Chair, shall I do my announcement?
I'm sorry. Yes?
Shall I do my announcement?
Yes, please.
In closed session, the board took up the closed session agenda item noted on the agenda, gave direction to staff and legal counsel, no reportable action.
All right, thank you. So at this time, as we return, I'd like to open up for any further public comment.
We have no requests to speak.
Okay. Are there any more board member questions? Hearing none. That takes us to a board member request for future agenda items, and I have 3. And I think given the timing, I think we may have to ask for a special meeting to be held, whether we do it remotely or here. We may have to ask for a special meeting in June prior to the start of the fiscal year. But those 3 items are as listed. The first is the contract amendment for Bay Shore to include the secretary cost. Earlier tonight, we approved that those dollars were in the budget to fund that, but an amendment needs to take place on the contract. The second is a contract for San Jacinto's city manager to serve as the CEO in an interim position with the effective date of July 1st and a ending date of to be determined as we figure out what we're going to do there. And then the third is to bring back a request to form the ad hoc committee to discuss the reserve policy. And then we would then adjourn to, I think, would we have to adjourn to the special, or can we book the special?
We can adjourn to the regular, and then if we call a special, we call a special. That's
Okay.
fine.
So then we would adjourn to the regular meeting scheduled August, I was lying without my glasses, I'm so sorry.
19th, 2025.
August 19th, 2025. Thank you, Alice. She clearly has her glasses on and I do not have them. So we adjourn to August 19th, 2025. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye.